I think one of the main things is a lot of the Noahides that are coming in today. They don't understand the history of the Noahide movement, and particularly they don't understand the sacrifices that Vendyl Jones made, and who Vendyl Jones was, and he's the patriarch of this movement. And the conference you're speaking about is when I was speaking at his conference.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, actually, Russell was the one that asked me to speak at it on behalf of Vendyl Jones.
Yeah.
And that was, oh man, that's back in 2005. So,
yeah, yes.
The lineage that we stand on is not our own. And I don't know how many Noahides in the world understand that tier that we were exposed to early on with the originator of this entire thing. And had it not been for Vendyl Jones, none of us would be here, And so I think a lot of the credit, all of the credit, it's kind of like Abraham. If it wasn't for Abraham, you wouldn't have Jacob, If it wasn't for Vendyl Jones, you wouldn't have Russell Kirk. You wouldn't have Mike Matledge. You wouldn't have Brad. You wouldn't have any of us. And he was the foundation that laid the groundwork for all of us to be able to build upon. And when he passed away, his wife, Anita Jones, who lives, at the time, she lived about 30 minutes up the road from me here. She spoke to me and Russell, and she said, you guys have to carry on his work and his legacy. And little did we know what it would lead to. We just said, okay, we didn't know what we were doing. If we knew what we're doing, we probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that y'all were standing in my kitchen when y'all were having that conversation, and, everybody was out at the house, in the country. And I overheard her, making those comments.
We should never forget where we come from. And we should never forget the trail that was blazed by Vendyl for probably close to 20 years before we ever got into it. And the Noahides today really need to understand the history of not only who Vendyl Jones is and what he accomplished for the nation of Israel, which is miraculous. And if you're listening to this podcast, and if you've never heard the history of Vendyl Jones and how he ultimately helped in the war in what was it, the
67 Six-Day
War? Yeah, that ultimately he was one of the reasons they won the war.
Yeah,
and
a big part of it.
And big part of it. And because of that, when he died, they took him to Israel and buried him in Israel. He's that important. And so if he's that important, and we are his lineage, and don't get me wrong, he had as many people that hated him as we have that hate us, but that's all part of the territory. That's just part
We're
of the territory.
working on that.
But it's you can't compromise the message for the sake of political correctness or whatever. It's Torah. Torah is truth. And Vendyl stood on truth. And that's one of the things I think that we do too, is we try to stand on the truth. And you have to source what you're saying. You have to understand what you're saying. It can't be your opinion. you know, and so that's how this class came about.
Very interesting. You know, you're right, though. I think without those pillars, you know, Vendyl being, you know, the cornerstone to really the Noahide movement, the way I see it, you know, and then the other pieces fall in place. And